Welcome to another PTCI exclusive program. Today we're in Perryton, Texas at the Museum of the Plains for the 2017 Stonehenge Fair. Emmanuel D. Herrera is on the camera. I'm Sean Barbary. Today we're going to talk to some people with collections, see what they brought, talk about their loves and their life, and hopefully have a great day. Well, we made it to our first interview. We've got Rick Williams here. He's from Guymon, Oklahoma, hometown guy. And he's got an expanded collection here. He's got some authentic finds. He's got some things he makes. And then he's got something else that he wants to talk to us about. Let's start over here with your authentic finds. What of these are you most proud of, the things that you've actually found yourself?
Okay, first of all, I grew up in Borger by the Alabates Flint Quarry. So there was a lot of Indian activity.
Right.
And I couldn't be a child, exploring the canyons without finding arrowheads.
Absolutely.
And I always would ask people, who made this? Why did they make it? And how did they make it? Well, back in the late 50s and early 60s, I didn't get any answers to those questions.
Right.
And so the more I found, the more questions I had to answer that couldn't be answered.
Right.
And
it would be nice if history came with a book, right?
Right. And Borger is located by the Alabates Flint Quarry. And so almost every flint item I have is made out of Alabates.
Right.
And Alabates is not a flint. Alabates is an agate.
Oh, that's right. Well, people call it flint, but yeah, it's an agate.
We love it because it's multicolored.
Right.
It's
really pretty. So, which one of these is your favorite?
Oh, probably the first one I ever found.
And which one is that?
And I was disappointed that it wasn't an arrowhead.
All right.
Yep. I actually found one of the best artifacts first, and it's an oval knife.
That's pretty.
And it's an oval knife. After it dulls, they would resharpen it, and it would turn out
two-side blade?
Yeah, a 4-bevel knife,
right,
like this. So this has never been used.
That's nice.
And rarely do you find an artifact that hasn't been used, made and then never used.
Now see, if I were to look at this, if I were walking and I looked at this, I would think maybe that is a skinning tool.
It is, absolutely.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
And while you're skinning, rock or the flint dulls just like steel does. And so you have to resharpen it.
Gotcha.
And then they turn out to be a propeller shape because they had 4 blades they could use.
Just industrious people, huh?
I'm really proud of this, and it was my first. It got me started.
That's neat. And how old were you?
I was 14.
14. So that's been a day or two, right?
Yep. And I immediately started flint napping. Because I had questions, how was this made?
Now, how many pieces of flint or agate have you found that looked like someone started to work on and they just threw it away?
Lots,
I would imagine, right?
Because they would find an anomaly or an impurity in that core and just discard it.
Right. Right.
But once they found a good core, they would use it up.
Sure.
And it would eventually become tools that they used.
Now you've got a lot of bone, a lot of pieces of bone stuff here. That all came from around Borger as well?
Yes.
Really?
There's a lot of active creeks there, Cottonwood Creek, Tarbox Creek, and they run year round. And there's always erosion on the bank.
So they fall out into
Yep. And if you didn't find them right after a rain and they were exposed to sunlight, they would deteriorate real fast. So
really?
I found that the best time to go artifact hunting was after a rain.
Right after rain. That's when I found. The ones I found is just right after rain, west pasture.
Yep.
Now, we were talking earlier about this piece here, and you said this is a trade item, and it's a piece of shell from the Pacific coast, right?
Yes, the California coast.
Now, you said the reason that it's still here and vital is because it had the salt water that kind of helped preserve it, correct?
Yes, it hardened it. Freshwater mussels or freshwater snails you can just touch them and just lightly put pressure on them, and they deteriorate, they break away.
Right.
But this has withstood time. These were traded around 1,000 to 500 years ago, and they're still here.
Now, the reason I ask about it that in depth is wondering, you said that the bone would deteriorate if it fell out of the bank. If it had been around the coastal area, would it last longer?
No, because it's not made out of the. This is made of from an animal, a living thing.
Okay, so different thing then, right?
This is made from material from the
Gotcha.
hardness of the
that makes perfect
salt
sense.
water.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, you've got a lot of things that you make, and they're super cool looking. Talk to me a little bit about what you with your bow and your arrow stuff and your atlatl stuff and this nature.
As being a kid around 14, I'm a self-taught flint napper.
And these are some of your tools that you nap with, right?
Yes, and you find the alabates.
That's a beautiful piece. My goodness.
That's what alabates
wow.
is known for. It looks like beefsteak,
right,
doesn't it?
It does. It looks like a great big roast. Or
And
something.
I would take a antler billet and or a hammerstone, and I would knock off flakes, like these. All right. Then I would take my smaller billet. This is a moose billet, and it would be a trade item.
Right.
And this is a mule deer billet made out of mule deer antler. And then I would take the flake, and still with percussion, I would shape it into a blank. And then after a blank, I would use a pressure flaker to make a sharp edge.
To actually put the fine edge on it.
Yes, and make it kind of a teardrop shape.
Right.
And then I would take a antler again, a splinter, and then I would notch the arrowhead.
Sure. Now these are traditional tools that the
Yes.
ancestors made their tips with.
Yes, a lot of the modern flint nappers use copper, or a screwdriver to notch.
Right. I've seen that, and I appreciate the fact that you use the correct tools.
Right.
That makes me happy.
I'm a purist.
There you go,
because
purist.
I wanted to answer my questions correctly.
Right. Right. Okay. So we were talking then, and you had questions about the actual point and the technology for the points.
Yes, some of the points the Native American made were so tiny. People call these bird points, but they're actual.
That's what I've always known them as.
I mean, if you shot, you spend months to make your bow and your arrow. Would you shoot at a bird?
It would have to be a really big bird, like a pheasant or something.
like a turkey.
Or turkey, yeah.
But no, these are arrow points, and these would bring down deer and antelope.
Right.
And so, why are they so tiny?
I've always wondered.
And
but then again, they always
this
said
would be an
birds.
atlatl point or a spear point.
Right.
But these would be arrow points.
Right.
And the reason they're so small is because in the Oklahoma and Texas Panhandle, they would use river reed. And
so this is light. Oh, this is like
really
feather
light.
light. It's hard to imagine that having any kind of power behind it, really.
Well, the power comes from the bow.
I guess so.
And then it's like bamboo. And so you make a
show the camera the inside of
Okay.
that right there.
It's made of
just
bamboo.
a reed. It's hollow.
And you make a hardwood shaft to fit into that.
And this is called the what?
The foreshaft.
Foreshaft.
The foreshaft. And now you've got a real small foreshaft. And so in order to arm that foreshaft, you have to have a small point. And that's why the points are so small. They're being put on a foreshaft of a reed arrow.
So you're basically planning to reuse the rest of the arrow. You're not really planning to reuse this.
Right,
This is something
right.
that you're giving away for the
Yes,
kill.
you would have like a sack of these. And then when you shot something, the animal would probably run away with this, but leave you the foreshaft.
Sure.
And then you could rearm it with another
Sure. Makes
another
perfect sense.
foreshaft.
Makes perfect.
Okay,
Just like
well-
reloading shells, huh?
Well, why didn't they just sharpen a stick like this?
Well, I'd always
And-
been
and-
told
and
that
hardened
wouldn't
it.
be tough enough to go through bone or whatever, but you've enlightened us.
Yep. You know, you could arm it with this, just hardened by heating it or tempering it, and then. But let me show you a demonstration.
Okay.
Here's just a hardened, tempered foreshaft, and let's just say this is a rabbit,
Okay.
representative of a body of a rabbit. So when it hits the rabbit, it doesn't drip.
Therefore, it doesn't.
What did it do? It just made a puncture wound.
Just went through, and you basically gave that rabbit.
Do you see that there is no leakage?
I see no leakage.
No leakage at all.
So if you don't hit a vital organ immediately, that animal is just going to scurry off.
Run off. It's going to die eventually, but maybe 2 or 3 days later.
Right.
So with the foreshaft armed with a flint sharp point, let me show you what happens.
That animal is bleeding.
Bleeding, and it's gonna die within minutes.
Yeah, it won't get very
Whereas
far.
this would take hours or days.
That makes a lot of sense, you guys. That makes a lot of sense. So now, is this something that you figured out? Is this something that's known?
People have asked me that question. You know, why did they go to the trouble of making a point? Because that's a lot of trouble, where you could just sharpen a sharp stick.
Right.
And you know, you could kill something, but they're hungry when they're hunting, and
Sure.
they want to kill the animal, not make it suffer.
Right, because they don't have a McDonald's in their back pocket, do they? They don't have a sausage biscuit with them.
No. So I couldn't answer that question. And then just one morning I woke up and I go, well, let's see what happens,
Sure.
you know?
That's really interesting. I'm actually
So that's why
enlightened.
spears have flint
Points.
spear points.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect. Now, do you give demonstrations in Guyman? Do you put on?
Oh yes. Dory Test
Okay, I
has
know
me
Dory.
she has me every year at the high school history class.
Okay.
And I do a presentation for them. I've done presentations for historical societies like the Amarillo, Guyman Historical Society, the Beaver County Historical
really?
Society.
Yeah.
Boy Scouts. Yes, I'm doing presentations all the time.
That's neat. Well, we need to get over and talk to some other people, but is there anything
Okay.
that you want to leave us with that we haven't touched on really quickly?
You know, when I go out with a friend arrowhead hunting, and he's never been arrowhead hunting, well, I'll be walking along, you know, looking for artifacts, and my friend will run over and goes, Rick, is this an arrowhead? And I go, no, that's not an arrowhead. And Rick, is this an arrowhead? No. And then a few minutes, Rick, is this an arrowhead? No. When he finds an arrowhead, he goes, Rick, I found an arrowhead. You don't have to tell him.
You don't have to ask,
Because
but you know one, right?
You know.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate the talk. Thank you so much for your time.
Enjoyed it.
Okay, we just got through with Rick Williams, and we were walking down, and we ran across Tony Stoddard. He's from Wichita, Kansas. It's where I was born.
Many years
It's been a
ago.
little kinship, yeah, about a half century ago. And he's telling us that he's been a collector since 1985.
Correct.
What got you into wanting to be a collector of archaeology?
Basically, just the mystery of early man, and I love the materials that they used and the craftsmanship. I'm an artist by trade. Been a creative director for many years. I'm now retired, but I've always loved the type of things that could be made from a rock.
Right.
And it was obvious that they were very passionate about the materials they chose and the workmanship. And I think there's a lot to do with how they were not just looking for things to survive with. That was part of one of their art form. So
I agree with you, and Emmanuel and I are both artists. We've got art degrees. We graduated from over here at OPSU. Looking at some of these are they're some of the prettiest artifacts I think I've seen maybe ever. The symmetry, I mean, someone really painstakingly took time.
And I think that there's a lot of influence in nature. I think it wasn't just by happenstance that they made something utilitarian. I think they were doing things that had some connections with their environment, and I also think that some of the early man was extremely. They would have been very. They would have had a lot of flavor to their presentation. They might have had a lot of feathers, very colorful people, each of their cultures. So
that's neat to think about, isn't it? Really?
It's just part of how I think about things.
Do you have, and have you been collecting enough? Do you have enough pieces that you can see actual styles?
Yes.
In the pieces. So maybe you could think about if you had a group of 1,000 pieces, and you could maybe lump those into certain categories of maybe possibly same people or a generation.
Same type of culture. I think they were just different types of cultures, and I don't think that there was a one culture that really married into another culture. I think that those cultures either died out or they just kind of dissipated and another culture came in. And
that's neat.
So,
are you always going to be a collector?
Probably so. Well, I'm sure. Yes.
Hey, how extensive is this? Is this your entire collection, or
no? This is. I probably have another. This is probably about a third of my collection.
Oh wow! You've got a lot of stuff.
So, yeah.
Kudos,
And
buddy.
I love to look at things that are going on in Europe. I've got quite a few Danish material and French material
Really?
and some African material. I like to see different connections between technologies, material usage, flaking. I do a lot of study of the flaking patterns.
Right.
So I can see some similarities between.
Well, I'm looking at these as we're talking, and I'm realizing that these almost look like a bird in flight. If you pin
They're
your wings
almost
back.
like a fighter plane.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this.
They're all, you can't
I can't raise them.
You can't raise them. I'm sorry.
They very similar, very a familiar flight look. You know, if you were to do a drawing or whatever, that would be.
Yeah. Those are AG points, and they're from a very small locality in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Spiro Mound, Crenshaw, same as our doctor right over there.
Right.
Yeah.
We spoke in depth with him last year.
Yeah.
And that was a good learning
Yep.
lesson.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. My goodness.
Yeah.
Well, tell me what is your most favorite
I think
thing?
probably my most favorite pieces are these two Clovis points right here.
Oh, those are nice.
That are from, in fact, all four of these pieces are from within about 250 miles of each other, but it's a Western Clovis style. And I think that the history behind them, because they were found in the 30s, and they actually were found within about 10, 15 feet of each other.
I think it was a fight.
Probably a kill site, because there was some mammoth bones that were found.
Oh, there you go.
Dr. Friesen and George Siemens
Okay.
both went to the site, and but anyway, the points were separated for like 30 or 40 years from the guy who found it in 1930. His daughter found the smaller one, and when she moved on to Washington State, she took that point with her, and then they ended up coming back together. George Friesen actually illustrated this point in his book, Prehistoric Hunters of the High Plains.
Okay.
So it's kind of a nice little famous point, and it's beautiful material, and
That's a good story.
yeah.
That's neat.
So
Now, do you this material here? Do you know what that is?
that is a Hartville material. They're both made out of Hartville. It just shows you some of the variations.
Right.
But it's a material that's locally around Guernsey, Wyoming, and the Hell Gap site.
Okay.
They kind of utilize that material quite a bit.
That's
So,
neat.
Yeah.
That's neat.
So, but most of my collection is paleo, because I like the very earliest man.
Right.
And it's just a fascination.
Oh, someone
There you
turned
go.
on the lights or
Yeah.
the sun came out. Hold on. My camera guy's like, no. It's just beautiful. I mean, and you've really got them arranged beautifully. It's very pleasing to my eye to see these. Now, we were just talking to Rick down there, and he was explaining about these smallest points.
Yes.
I grew up and with the understanding that these were bird points, and he's telling me that they're not bird points, but they're
Those
built
would
this
have
way
killed
too.
buffalo and everything
Yeah.
else with bow and arrow.
Yeah, these are actually more bleeder points when they're
Yeah.
small like this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that was an interesting lesson we got from him.
Yep.
And I love the fact that we come here and talk to you guys and I learn something
Every time.
because it makes me happy to
well,
learn.
everybody has an opinion about different things. We can do the, you know,
Yeah.
So.
Well, is there anything you want to leave us with on the way out? I mean, our TV
Well,
viewership is.
One of the things about these things is that I feel like, and every point that I have has a number on the back. Every bit of information is related to that point about where it came from, the site, the past ownership. And I'm just a curator
Critically
for a while.
important, and I'm glad that you have that.
Curator for a while, and every bit of this will move on to some other collector, as you know, because I'm just a caretaker for a period of time.
Sure.
These things have been around for thousands of years.
Absolutely.
And hopefully they'll just continue along with someone that has the same passion towards trying to understand where we came from and what everything is about.
That's the mission, isn't it?
It is.
And I'm glad that you have documented pieces because
yeah.
at some point in time, someone is going to put all that down into a big grid and figure out something amazing. I just know it.
That's exactly right.
I just know it.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
So much
No
for
problem.
talking to
Yep.
us. This is Richard Rose. Scott Brzezowski said, you need to go talk to Richard this year. He's here, and he might do an interview. And I said, okay, we'll go talk to him. Now, you've got a big spread of stuff here, and it's specifically about the sand hills, Folsom Sand Hills, right?
The site itself is in Kermit area of Sand Hills, right? And these are Folsom Midland artifacts. It's basically a pure Folsom site. And I've been collecting it for 36 years. Probably made over 400 trips.
Wow.
Out to the site in 36 years.
How many pieces have you actually collected from that site?
Probably, if you include all the flakes, etc., 5,000 flakes.
My goodness, is everything documented right here?
All of the artifacts have been documented, and a lot of them have been drawn up, and then plus documented as far as, the dimensions, etc.
That is amazing.
It's a lot of work.
I want to thank you for doing that, because this is what has to happen when something is found.
That's right.
This is the most important, almost the most important, aside from making sure you don't lose it or break it, that there is. And he's got detailed imagery. He's got everything. This is amazing.
Yeah, so you would have the information for this artifact here on this side.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, just the dimensions and this.
And then a little note, something that you were
right,
longitude,
the
latitude.
location of that artifact on the side.
That's cool. Now, okay, so you've been collecting this area, you've been picking this area, you've been going over this area for years and years and years. What have you gleaned any information as far as historical information, not just the fact that you found stuff there, but can you paint a picture of what was going on there?
Apparently, it was a kill site where they, killed a bunch of bison, and then the tools and stuff where they were processing and taking the hides off and processing the meat for consumption, and that's what the signature of this site implies, that it was a kill site that turned into a campsite.
So some native isolated a group of bison, deer, bison, something.
Bison.
Made a big kill probably for the winter, and they just ended up camping there for.
It's been there, laying there for probably 11 or 12,000 years. That's the approximate age.
That is a long time.
Yes.
That's a really long time.
It's a long time. And there are numerous refits where I find one piece of an artifact and find the other piece X number of years later. And the one piece I found a base to a projectile point 22 years and 11 months before I found the tip to it, where they refit back together.
That might be the longest jigsaw puzzle assembly that I know of.
It's a length of time.
Was that just like very validating and exciting when you found the other piece? And
oh yes.
That's great. That's
it
great.
Really is.
I mean that takes patience. I don't know that I would have that much patience. I'd probably give up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Anyway, this is here recently. Over the years, I've worked with this Shannon Ryan. She's now Dr. Shannon Ryan, but she did her PhD dissertation on this site and another site, comparing them, and so she piece plotted. In other words, she took all of these points, the location where I'd found them, and put them back onto a map, and shows the distribution of these artifacts over time. This is a Google map. Mm-hmm. This is 22.83 acres that this site covers.
Wow.
And I don't know what else to say about it.
Can you see? I mean, okay, so I'm a pretty simplistic guy, right? If I see a bunch of groupings of artifacts, in my mind I'm thinking, well, maybe that was a family, maybe that was a family,
Exactly.
maybe that was a family. So this is more like a little village, right?
Well, it's not a village as such, but what she did, after piece plotting all of these artifacts, she ran computer programs, and these computer programs are called a kernel density estimate and also a two-step cluster. And what they do is they try to identify clusters, and I told them I thought there were clusters of artifacts out there, which would imply family units or groups, tribes, whatever. And that's what it came up with. It shows 7 different clusters were identified by the computer programs that.
See, and I didn't realize you were talking about 20 acres.
Yeah,
20 acres is a nice, big, spread out area.
Yes.
And you know, in my mind, I could see that 20 different or 7 different families or small tribe or something.
Yeah. Well, what they basically on these Folsom groups, they think they were family groups that traveled around together that were probably 20 to 30 people at the maximum, you know, hunters and family members. And then they would come together once a year or twice a year for aggregations, and they made a big kill on this coming together. When they have an aggregation, that's to trade information, for news, maybe a spouse, you know, where you won't have this genetic problem going on, you know.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and
because
that's what they may have happened there.
They didn't just stay in one small tribe, right? They would kind of intermarry with.
Yeah, these were highly nomadic people. They were bison hunters that tended to follow the bison wherever the bison went. That's where they were going to go.
Right.
And so when you killed them, you would process them, and then you'd go out and find another group.
Right. So this is really cool. This is, you know, I enjoy hearing about people finding points and where they found it, but this is kind of more the sociology of the people, right? This is what makes them be grouped together.
Yeah.
Sort of their.
I'm not sure what.
I mean, if you're seeing a bunch of people that were coming together,
right,
that means that they're kind of more social than not.
Right.
So that would be almost a little bit of research of their sociology, right?
Yeah. They're trading items with each other. You know, I have some of this and you have some of that, and we're going to make a deal, you know, because, you know, trading items and spouses.
Right. That is neat. That's neat.
Like this picture right here, this is a picture of one of the blowouts in Shifting Sands. It's area 2, which would be right in here. And showing where the artifacts come from. And this is David Meltzer with SMU, and that's myself. And Vance Holliday took this picture back in 1963 or 4. And but it shows you what the site looked like, you know, with this one blowout in particular. And these are old lake bed deposits.
So there's really nothing there except for sand, right? I mean, that's basically just sand.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have looked like that back then, though, right?
No.
Back then it would have been what? What do you?
I would think it'd been wetter, more vegetation, and more stable. It wouldn't have been big blowouts like that. It'd been, you know, more level area. It'd be sandy, but level.
You feel like there would have been a grass covering? Would there have been
Probably,
trees?
yes, I would think so.
And now, is there a river system that runs through that?
No.
No?
No. It's just it would be a springy area, you know, you'd get water collecting in the bottom of these dunes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know, high water levels.
Right. Water table comes to the
Seeps,
surface.
Right.
Gotcha.
And that's probably what attracted the bison there.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure. Is any of this big part like a big wallow? Can you see that, you know, how you hear about the...
No, because, you know, this is 11, 12,000 years old, and it's hard to, you know, this area that you see exposed down here used to be covered by all of this.
Right. So it's
So it's exposed, you know, as it exposes.
right. Right. This is super interesting. This is kind of stuff that I can really sink my teeth into, because it feels like the reality of what was happening. You know, you've got a kind of a snapshot of the reality of what happened. Do you want to share anything else with us here? Do you have like a favorite piece, a favorite?
Oh, of
Do you have
course.
your first find here from this site?
Yeah. The first thing I ever found was this right here. This little distal end scraper, and there were thousands of flakes. You know, when I walked into the blowout, they were literally covered in flakes, and then that was the first thing I found, and that's when I had that, you know, that feeling. You know, this is an important Paleo-Indian site.
Right.
And then in the next blowout I went into, I found what they call a midland point, and then I knew that I had a fantastic
You were onto something
site.
then, right?
Yes, right.
Now, are you the first person to discover this site?
Over the years, I've met some other people that had knowledge of the site. I mean, you know, I discovered it on my own personal level.
Right.
But other people, you know, in West Texas, there's always somebody that's been there before you.
Right.
But they didn't put the effort into it like that I have.
Right. You've done some research here.
Right.
You've documented
I've worked with archaeologists.
Right. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Okay.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to show us this and walk us through that. Is there anything that you want to leave our viewers with?
If you collect artifacts, you should document them, at least keep a record of where they come from. That's very important.
Absolutely. And we're big advocates for that. In fact, we talk about it. We talk about it all the time. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, we're
This
here
is
with
official.
Ken Widener, and he's from Copeland, Kansas, and he is a Native American enthusiast. As you can see, he's a hobbyist. It's been a passion and interest of yours for how long?
Almost 50 years, I'm guessing,
50
since I'm
years?
54.
Wow.
So, yeah,
And
ever
then,
since I was a kid.
what started that? Did you find something? You're
Not
on
really,
the farm, or?
but when I was a kid, I did a lot of hunting and shooting and stuff, and whenever I'd kill something, I'd eat everything. I had
you
a
go.
motto, you know, whatever
Kill it,
I
grill
shot,
it.
I'd eat it.
There you go.
And then, of course, I tried tanning the hides. I was always interested in tanning the hides. I didn't learn how to tan until I was 25 or so, in my mid-20s, before I started learning how to actually tan these hides. And then in high school, grade school, I got really interested in Indian culture. I used to always do term papers on Indian battles.
Oh, really?
Sand Creek, Washita, Little Bighorn, that kind of stuff. And then when I got out of high school, I ran into, I started hearing about rendezvous and fur trade stuff. So I started going to rendezvous, and pretty quick I could see I was still interested in that stuff, but passively. The Indians, my prime thing.
Right.
And I shifted gears, and I met a friend over at Guyman, Ivan Hankla, who passed
know
away.
Ivan.
You
Yep.
remember Ivan? He passed away a few years ago, but he was a strong influence, very powerful influence. And another friend out of Trinidad, Colorado, Tom Scarborough. And then that led to, we started having Indian camps, and the rest is history. And then that was back in the 90s. I shifted gears from Crow Indian stuff. I was interested in Crow. Now I just do strictly Southern Cheyenne. So we set up camps. We make all this stuff, research it, make it, and we go set up a camp and live with it.
Now, Southern Cheyenne, where are they geographically? What?
Now they're down in Oklahoma, like from Sealing down to Clinton, Kingfisher, that area down in there. But in the old days, they ranged from clear down the Washita, clear down to the Red River, up to the South Platte.
Oh,
From the
that
front
great
range,
expanse.
from the front range of the Colorado Rockies to the Council Grove, Kansas. It was a huge area.
Wow,
The
that's-
Southern Cheyenne and Southern Arapaho traveled all over that area. This is in the 1860s time frame.
right.
The Northern Cheyenne were still further north of the South Platte and up into Wyoming, Nebraska, Montana. That was the Northern Cheyenne, but they'd split apart in the 30s, 1830s, and the Southern people had moved down here.
On their own, or were they forced?
They just the Northern people just kind of stayed there. The Southern people kind of drifted south slowly. When William Bent married Owl Woman of the Southern Cheyenne, she was the daughter of a prominent chief. And they said, if you build your fort out here, we'll trade with you. So Bent built
Bent's Fort,
Bent's new
Colorado.
fort in Colorado. That solidified that relationship with the Southern, and that brought them a little further south from the Platte. And they centered and they did all that trading out there, and that really tied the Southern Cheyenne down to the Southern Plains.
Well, no, that's neat. I did not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
That's neat how that
Yeah.
all kind of worked together.
Yeah. And when they originally came down here, and in Arapaho, they're both, the same language dialect, but yet they spoke entirely different languages. Algonquin, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not a linguist.
It's okay.
But the Cheyenne and Arapaho hung out together. If you find a camp of Cheyenne, there's probably going to be some Arapaho in there, and vice versa. But when they got down here, they did not get along with Kiowas, like Mr. James.
Oh, right. James Coverdale, he's
Right.
Iowa.
He's Kiowa. They weren't buddies at all.
Right.
And I can remember it was 39 or 49. They had the big fight down here at Wolf Creek. We're on
Oh, yeah.
Wolf Creek down here.
Yeah.
At the head of Wolf Creek, where it breaks off from the Canadian and forms the Beaver to form the Canadian. There was a big battle, and the Cheyenne went down there and had this fight. And after that, both teams just kind of said, "Hey, we're not getting anywhere."
Not working.
Yeah. So the next year they kind of had a big peace treaty out by Benson, and they patched things up, and they've become allies ever since. So they're still on friendly terms today.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that either.
Yeah, just some.
I mean, I know
Southern
there's
Plains
some
stuff.
sites over here by
Yeah.
Wolf Creek, but I didn't realize that was one of them.
Yeah, that was a big one. The big battle of Wolf Creek. Yep.
Okay, so tell me about what you're doing
Okay.
now. What are we looking at here for the Stone Age Fair today that you brought?
Well, I just kind of brought an overview of some Southern Cheyenne type stuff. And there is a little Kiowa stuff, Kiowa lion hide quiver. The quiver, the lion hide quiver there is
right
is Kiowa.
Nice.
Everything else is pretty much Southern Cheyenne here. This is kind of like, this is pictograph scenes here on the back. And I didn't do this piece. A friend of mine, Peter Bowles, did. He's probably the best pictograph drawer today that I know of. He's good. But every scene depicts something that happened in a guy's life. Like, for instance, pull me out an arrow there. I like to use the arrow as a pointer. Okay, so the liner, this is like a liner in the back of a teepee.
Right.
Originally, they'd be painted on like hide, two buffalo hides sewn together. This is done on muslin, and it's by a fella named Peter Bowles. He's probably the best pictograph artist that I know of today, that's alive today. And I'm going to go with this one right here. This is a really good shot right here. This scene right here. Now this guy, you can tell he was in a fight. His horse got shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. That was a good war horse. His tail was tied up for battle with some red stroud. So his horse is down. The guy's going to run away. But to show that he's brave, he stopped and pulled off the silver bridle.
Gotcha.
He took the extra time it took to pull that bridle off that horse to show that 2 reasons. One, the bridle is quite valuable, but also it's like, hey, I'm not just running off. I'm going back to get this.
Right.
And this is a real classic Southern Cheyenne outfit that he's got on here. He's got a long stroud wool breech clout, real long in the back, a little shorter in the front. This is diagnostic of Cheyenne breech clouts. He's wearing stroud wool leggings with beaded panels on the leggings. He's got a cartridge belt on there. Stroud wool on his hair wraps. This is that's a bandolier of stroud wool there. He's got a pectoral here.
Oh, okay.
Just a silver ornament that they'd wear on their chest.
Right.
He's got a pair of silver armbands to go on his arms here, right here. He's got a eagle feather in his hair. They got a dragonfly, a whirlwind. A dragonfly is probably made of rawhide or maybe beadwork tied to a scalp lock that's coming down the back of his head. That gives him the power of a dragonfly. And dragonflies, they dart around and stuff.
Sure.
And they associate dragonflies with whirlwinds. So this is just a real classic scene from a Cheyenne warrior. And the rest is just more scenes of it.
More scenes of it.
Yeah.
It's fun how they tell the story through the pictures.
Exactly. And you can see they really weren't all that politically correct, because I think somewhere, he's capturing a woman here. He's capturing this guy. But I thought there was one in here where they're killing a woman.
Oh yeah.
I guess it's this one here. Right here. And this is a Pawnee woman he's against. You can tell the Pawnees were indicated with winged black moccasins.
Oh, okay.
Right here. Their moccasins were made different. They were painted black and they had wings on them, for the Pawnee guys. But in their eyes, a woman was just as bad as a man, because she produces more warriors.
More warriors, sure.
Right. It's not very politically correct in today's thought
Well,
in society.
yeah.
But if you're in it for real life, an enemy's an enemy. Same thing with kids. A little 10 or 12-year-old boy, you give him a couple more years and he'll get you.
So get you, right.
You may as well take him out while you can.
Now, you've got this vest on, and I want to ask you about it because it's super, super neat.
Okay, this is called a shoe button vest. Here's one, right here. Right there's one. The guy's wearing it. And what it is it's a white man's vest. By the 1850s and 60s, they're getting lots of vests. This is a modern shirt, but normally I'd be wearing a calico shirt.
Sure.
And a vest similar like this. You'll see basic plain vests, but these are brass beads that are stitched down every 2. I think I got almost 1,000 of them by the time you go clear around.
Oh yeah.
And outlines the thing. And then there's chains hanging down, and these are little shoe buttons, like the little granny shoes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they like these little dangles. And
So is this authentic? Is
Yeah,
this, is it,
yeah.
this is actually...
yeah, you'll see a lot of it in the pictograph drawings. Some of it looks like musicians' coats or stuff, but I think they were indicating these. And then you also see them in the photographs with these little chain dangles
I have
and the
seen
shoe
them.
buttons.
Yeah, I have seen them.
Some of them used just strictly the shoe buttons, and there was gaps between them around the perimeters. But there's two types of this type and then the purely shoe button. But this is a combination of shoe buttons, chains, and the brass beads.
And it's really ornamental, right? Or,
Yeah,
or
it
is there
is.
significance to the number of things? Or
It means that I'm a really good-looking guy.
There you go.
And really classy guy.
There you go.
Chicks dig it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, chicks dig it. Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just a dress style.
Sure.
I don't think there was any spiritual or religious significance. I think it was just like Armani suits and stuff today.
Sure.
Not
Now,
everybody could afford this.
I would imagine not.
You know, I don't know what they cost at the time, but you know, they probably had to trade several buffalo robes to buy these little dangles and
Sure.
stuff.
Sure.
I know J.R. Mead traded the shoe buttons. He also, when I was going through his inventories, it said 3/8 inch chain. And I was thinking, as a farmer, I'm thinking 3/8 inch
Thickness.
link. Yeah, like a log chain.
Right.
Thinking, what are they using that big? And then finally, I realized it's 3/8 inch, the overall length.
Right.
Link.
Yeah.
And it was jack chain, which is you can still buy jack chain today. Although it's hard to find in brass, I'm telling you.
I would imagine.
Anything made of brass today is hard to find.
I would imagine.
And even these little babies these little shoe buttons.
I don't know
They-
that I've seen those in forever.
Well,
Because those are solid, right?
No, they're hollow.
Oh, okay.
They're two piece. There's a curved top and a bottom, and then a loop on the back. I'm getting them through a Indian supply store, through a dealership, and they're $1.15 a piece. So, you know, I'm wearing
You got a
a
lot-
couple $100 worth of just the buttons.
Now, Ken,
So it's
when
really
we
expensive.
first came up, we had a couple of individuals that had presented you with some pictures, some portraits, and they wanted to know. They had scenes. They were real life images of some Native American, and they wanted to know what you felt like. Who took the picture? What was it about?
And I messed it up, didn't I?
I don't know. Did you?
yeah. I thought it was a Curtis print, an Edward S. Curtis, and it was a Roland Reed.
Okay.
But it was a real famous photograph of a Blackfoot scaffold burial, where they would bury it. They'd put 4 stakes up and build a scaffold up high enough the wolves couldn't get to it, and then they'd put the body up there.
Right. And
And-
would it just stay there? Or?
Yeah, until it rotted apart, and then a lot of times they'd come back in a couple of years and gather up the bones and bury them.
But they felt like that would ascend them
Yeah.
to the next place, right?
Yeah, and they did the scaffolds and also buried them in trees, a fork in a tree, and then they'd put the body up there.
I see.
It was a real common Cheyenne type burial. Why? I don't know. That's just how they did it. And then later they started putting them into the crevices and whatnot.
Right.
And it also depends. All your burial practices depends. Different tribes had different methods of
Well, around
burials.
here there's some burial caves, right?
Yes,
There
yes,
are.
like up on the Cap Rocks where it splits off. They'd find a little, shove the body in there, covered it with rocks so the wolves and stuff can't get to it.
Right.
Where up on the scaffold, they didn't really care because the vultures and ravens and stuff are going to pick them clean. And
Right.
usually they wrap them up in a buffalo robe and or maybe a travois dome or something to keep them out as long as possible. But they're going to come apart.
Right,
In 5
right.
years, they're going to probably be down,
Right.
or 10 for sure. So that's how they did it.
But do you have a lot of people that come to you with hey, what is this? Hey, what?
Some, not as much as I've had quite a few here today.
Right.
But not at home that much. But at home, I'm just kind of the oddball.
Well, then you
But-
fit right in with us.
Yeah. Which is kind of neat because I live right in the middle of a Mennonite community up home, and I kind of like being the oddball out. I mean, I like living where I'm the weird one.
Right.
I mean, if I'm the weirdest one, then things are okay because actually I'm a redneck. I just don't look like it. So,
Tell me more.
okay.
What
do you
else
wanna
are we
know?
doing here? Is this you as well?
Yeah, this is all me. I got, and since this is a Stone Age fair, it's concentrating on Stone Age stones points and stuff, and I don't know anything about that. That's before my time frame.
Right.
I'm interested in after white contact, and so they have all this steel, iron.
I noticed this.
Oh, isn't that fun?
That looks fun.
Yeah, it is fun. This is And this isn't Cheyenne. Although I've seen one pictograph of a Cheyenne carrying one of these. These are more Lakotas carried these. It's called, just surprisingly, it's called a knife stick.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where
Very
they come up-
descriptive.
Yeah, how did they get the name? But usually has 3 knife blades in there.
Well, I've seen this weapon before. So I
They're long stick, 3 blades, usually 3, evenly spaced up here at the end. The one thing I did wrong that I really regret on this is when I went out to start working on it, I usually go in and check my computer files and study and research real serious before I get started. My wife was on the computer that day and I decided no. So I just went out and started. And this blade probably should be down here. Usually there's a little bigger gap here.
Oh, okay. And why?
Should be down here. I don't know, but usually they are. And so I started, and then when I walked in, it's like, dang it. But yeah, it's 3 blades, and obviously this is not a hunting weapon. It's
No,
strictly
this
used,
is-
you know,
This is
and
for
it's
war.
probably maybe a society, maybe it's an officer of a society that carried these. I don't know.
Right.
Could be, or it could be a weapon. I don't know.
Reminiscent of like cavalry, colonel, major swords or something.
Different warrior societies. Each tribe had different warrior societies, and somewhat like Marines, Air Force, Army, kind of, but yet different. But they had 4, 6, 7 different varieties of warrior societies. Each tribe, each society had different officers.
Gotcha.
And it may be a badge of that office.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I was
but
trying
I-
to
but
convey
I
the
do
badge
know-
part of it.
That if you rode by on a horse and stuck this in somebody, you're committed to that guy, because
For a while.
at least for a couple minutes till you withdraw it.
You're right.
And I don't think it's going to be easy to pull out. So.
No. Oh,
But
but
it's a
you know
fun
what?
one.
I just had a thought. Maybe the reason for the extended length is to use that as a pry.
Crowbar.
Yeah. To pry it
could
back
be.
out.
Well, you just
Ow. Look how
That's
intuitive I am.
right.
This is really,
rest
really
of the
cool.
stuff is
You've
just
made all
stuff.
this, right?
I've made most of it. That was a shingling hatchet, and I wanted to make one, so I annealed it, and then I drilled it out and forged it out a little longer. That's a lot of file work.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. And it's a pipe, yeah?
It's a pipe, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a pipe, it's a smoking pipe, and then the ash handle has been branded.
Mm-hmm.
They had all sorts of decorations on. They had brass wire wraps or brass tacks. They also had beaded drops, something like this hanging off of them.
Right.
All sorts of decorations, and these things were, there's a story that says, you can come in. If you go into council, you can have peace or war.
Right.
I don't know. I think it was almost more a piece of jewelry that a guy would carry, because you see them in photos, and there a lot of guys just holding these, and
Right.
of course they're so ornamented. I don't know if they actually used them very much, either for smoking, and I'm sure they didn't fight with them very much, because
They're hollow, right?
yeah, and although it would work,
I mean, if you were sitting around the campfire in a big council tent and someone just ticked you off,
you can
it would
do its job.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
Let me say, one of my strong point is the saddles and horse tack.
Okay.
I'm about the only guy that really makes a lot of saddles, and also the silver bridles. And that's one of the reasons I came down here, is because, like this fella here, he'd found some of the silver bridles and stuff, and I came down to kind of show
On a
what.
dig?
Yeah, he was metal detecting.
Right.
And kind of to show the finished product, what the finished items is what these guys are digging up. Here's what the finished products look like. And then over here, I got silver working tools that they would have used at the camp to do their engraving.
Right.
I got arrow making tools here somewhere. And one neat thing today, the neatest thing I think I've found, is over there. There's a table, and I had made this up several years ago. This is my bullet making, I got bullet molds and lead bars and all this stuff in here to make bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they had to have ladles. Why
Oh,
wouldn't
well,
they have
sure.
used the stirring spoon? So I made a little ladle out of that.
Uh-huh.
If you go right over there a few tables, there's a guy found one, only it's a spoon shape, and he's got the ladle so you'd pour that way.
Oh, that's good.
To me, that's worth the trip just to see that one item.
Exactly.
Because it verifies what I come up with.
Exactly.
And-
exactly.
What is it? Theory of independent invention or whatever. I knew they had to have done this.
Sure.
There
Makes
it pro-
perfect
There
sense.
it proves it.
Yeah.
And his is all mixed in with it's one of the few metal pieces he's got. It's not like he made this. I mean, you can see it. It's an old one.
Right.
It's not a fake like this.
Right.
You know, a lot of people, this is all fake stuff or reproduction, but it's based on real stuff.
Yeah, that was actually on the site. Came up with the
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, it's on the other side, just right over
So
there.
that's some
somewhere.
validation.
And I want to go over there and show him my spoon here in a little bit, because I told him, I said I'd come up with that idea too. So
Neat.
pretty neat.
Neat,
I
neat.
think it's cool.
Well, Ken, I really appreciate you sharing all this with us, and
Watch my stuff
I
tonight.
think so. Watch it.
Watch it
Watch it where?
on AMC.
Oh, you're on.
Yeah, there's a series called The Sun.
Okay.
And it's Pierce Brosnan TV series. It started 2 weeks ago, and I rented that one. I rented 4 saddles, and a buddy of mine rented a couple, and then I rented about at least that many silver bridles and Stroud wool.
To them for the show on
Yeah,
TV.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was
Yeah.
digging it?
It's called The Sun with Pierce Brosnan on AMC. I don't have cable, so I haven't
Okay.
seen it. I watched it later on the internet, but the rest of it, don't look at the rest of the costumes are pretty bad.
Really?
But I haven't seen a saddle yet, but I've seen the bridles and I've seen the Stroud wool. So
That's cool.
yeah,
Well,
kind of fun.
I'll have to watch.
All right.
I appreciate the time.
You bet.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Jackson from Spearman, Texas, and he has an artifact here. Would you like to explain to us what we're looking at?
Well, this oval knife was found on the east side of Paladura Creek at the town site where Old Hansford was until it moved to Spearman and the railroad came through in 1917. And it was in a county road, and it's a miracle that it wasn't.
This
road.
was in the road?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And this little corner was sticking up.
Oh my goodness.
And it's the largest one I've ever seen. And
that is crazy. I've always wondered if you could actually find one in a road, and you did it.
yeah, this one was in
That
the
is-
sand. And the road went along the county fence line, and where the county road was to Ranch North, that was the only way you could get in across the Paladura Creek until they developed the oil field and then
When was this? When was this found?
1975 in July.
1975. That's been a ways ago then, hasn't it?
Yeah,
So what exactly is it?
it's a oval knife. It's the Antelope Creek era Indians made them.
So that is okay. So it's Antelope Creek. Is that a Clovis, a Folsom, or is it just a knife? Is it just
Well,
they call it?
they call them an oval knife. This one's a left-handed one.
How do you
See
know
where,
that?
where it's flake here, you can take it out and you can see the slope of it. Right? See how it's sloped there? It's a left-handed one where they can cut.
Oh, okay. I
like
see what you're
that.
saying. Yeah.
And I'm not that sharp on it. There's another guy here, he said he never saw but two of them made left-handed.
So this is actually pretty rare, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's not.
yeah, it was probably from 1100 to 1300.
I can't believe the size of that and that it wasn't broken on the road.
No, it's 9 3/4 inches, not a chip or a flaw in it nowhere.
Well, George, this is beautiful. What else do you have to show us here? Have you been collecting for all your life?
No, my brother-in-law and I started, he's collected forever, but I helped him excavate a lot of sites, and mostly I just pick them up while we're working.
Are these all finds of yours?
Yes.
Where did these all come from? Hansford County, or they?
Most of those came from Hutchinson County on the Turkey Track Ranch there.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of them came from a turkey track. Most of them are in Hutchinson County and Hansford.
So these are on the turkey track. That's over there where the adobe walls, right around in there.
Yeah, it's. I had the Peaster pasture leased northeast of Adobe Walls,
Okay.
and this was found on the Brainerd Ranch. It washed out in the flood through a campsite in.
Now, what is that exactly? Is that
I guess it's an axe. Or
An axe?
Yeah. Usually you don't find many of them in this country, but
No, I haven't seen any, as far as I know, that were found locally here.
I've seen one out of our area and one off of a campsite down by Twitty, down between Wheeler and Shamrock there.
So do you guys go out and hunt quite often? Do you out and dig around, or?
No, not like we used to. It's after they started the deer hunting. Well, most of the ranchers don't want you going in now.
Yeah.
It's hard to get permission to go excavate them anymore.
Now, did you find all these out digging, or is this stuff that?
No, most of those coins I found, all the smaller ones. These silver dollars were. I kept them when we used to go to horse races at Raton, and before they shut it down in '86, and
Now
then
this-
my grandparents give me the $50 when I was a little kid, and then all these are just commemorative coins of the counties. And
I noticed you have the coin from last year's Stone Age Fair mounted in there. That's neat. Well, I tell you what, is there anything that you want to leave our viewers with on the way out?
no, just thank everybody for coming and watching, looking at it, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I appreciate the interview. Okay, we've got to the end of the day. We've talked to several people, very interesting people. They've had amazing collections, amazing stories about their collections. We've actually learned a lot today. Scott Brzezowski, Dr. Scott Brzezowski here.
Oh, Scott.
With course in archaeology research.
Archaeological research.
Archaeological research. I never can get it all out of my mouth. By the end of the day, I'm tired. Here with us, it's another great turnout. It's another great event. What more can you say about it?
I mean, it's just, every year it's the same thing. We're just, we always feel so blessed that all these folks take time out of their busy schedules and come to Perryton, Texas and hang out with us all day. It's, as I say every year, it's like Christmas in April for us to see all the collections and see all of our old friends and collections that come to town. And it just never ceases to amaze me that it can get better and bigger every year, and it does.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can tell the depth of the building we're in, but it takes about a half a day to walk to the other end, and it's just a continuous collection. It's just one thing after another. Where is the farthest person that came this year that you know of?
I mean, they're all fairly local. I mean, we have guys from Midland, Texas. We have a guy from down east of Austin, some guys from Dallas. We have some folks from Wichita.
Wichita people we talked to, yeah.
There's, stuff from northeastern Colorado, Sterling, Colorado. And then the collections, obviously, there's, collections from all over that. I guess I was watching the show last night, and from
last year?
There was a guy that had stuff from like sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah,
that he brought to the show, and I was like, what?
I remember that. Yeah, that was neat, right?
Mm-hmm. So, just amazing stuff.
Well, we've learned some interesting things, amazing things this year. I can't wait to go through the footage and look at it again and relearn it. It's just always so much fun, and everyone is so polite and so friendly. They're eager and willing to give you everything they have as far as their knowledge and the stories. If you point to a piece and you say, well, what about this piece? Well, it was a Thursday, it was 3:15, and they remember, because it means so much to them.
Well, a lot of them keep amazing records. I mean, records that would be amazing for a professional archaeologist with the journals and the photographic documentation and, everything that they do. And it's, and then they've got all this stuff memorized, and they've got backup, It's just, and that's the thing is, so many archaeologists, tend to look down on collectors as stealing the past or whatever. And they're, all these guys would probably have been archaeologists if they had the opportunity, but
I think
for whatever
so
reason,
Yeah.
And to me, they are archaeologists. They just don't get paid like some of us other ones do.
Well, and like the one gentleman, I believe his name was Richard Rose. He has an actual binder, everything in his collection with a photo image, a drawn image, and the exact location, everything about it, and even notes about the day he found it. I was blown away.
I mean, Richard's amazing. I've known Richard for like 25 years. And I mean, the documentation that he keeps with everything, I mean, from stuff that most people would consider very minor, he has a complete story on everything.
Now, James Coverdale, when we were just about to do an interview earlier, he came over to a man that we were about to interview, Ken. And they had photographs, old photographs of Native Americans.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that was something that a guy from outside of Rolla, Kansas brought down to the show.
right, and they were asking to know if Ken could help them identify, either the people, the tribe, maybe the photographer. So, and that's something I didn't really realize, what the value of the people that come to the show, that are here with the collections, and they bring their knowledge. That's a value to someone that maybe have something at home that they don't really know what it is, but they know it's old and it's been handed down, and it's Native American subject matter or something in that vein. They might come up here to see if someone can identify it for them. Never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's like better than Antique Roadshow.
Right.
I mean, our guys know more than those British twins on the show,
They have to. And so, collectively they kind of got together and figured out what it was. So that was really interesting to see, like a real live thing happening, on the spot in front of me, going, that's pretty cool. Didn't think about that.
One thing that's cool too is, unlike Antiques Roadshow, where you take it to one expert and you trust what that expert knows. Here, if there's something we're not sure, we pull together 4 or 5 guys, and we may all disagree, or we all may come to the same conclusion.
Right.
And so that guy leaves knowing, wow, 4 out of 5 professional archaeologists all agreed that this is what this was and where it came from and how old it is. And so it's nice too that, if who's necessarily going to believe me what I say, but if I can bring in some other expert that ends up saying the same thing, it means more.
Well, it's a nice knowledge pool to have.
It is. And so, once a year we get all these guys together under one roof, but the rest of the year, I'm emailing these guys, calling them on the phone, sending them pictures. And so I stay in touch with all these guys. The thing that's sad is it's only one day long, because I don't get a chance to hang out with everybody like I'd like to,
I know, and I know I'm taking a lot of your time, and I don't want to, but tell me what's going on with everything else. How's the lab going, and all of your research? Have you got anything coming up? Are you?
We've been working on a project, a site down on our Lips Ranch down the Canadian River. That it's a site that dates to 1350 AD, and
That's a ways back.
And it has a series of 5 or 6 houses. They're square houses that are known as what's called the Antelope Creek phase.
Right.
And so they're large square houses that are real typical. But what's unusual is all the houses at the site are burned.
Oh.
And we've been doing excavations on one of those houses, and the preservation is amazing. It had a wood frame structure that was kind of like a dome structure, almost like a Quonset, where the posts are set in the ground and they're bent up and over and tied together. And then there are horizontal members that went around. It's like an upside down basket. And then it was covered with grass thatch. And the entire house burned, and everything just fell down into the house. And it's amazing, the preservation, like the posts that go into the ground, they're 650 years old, and you can still pound nails into them.
That is insane.
So they're like juniper cedar posts, just like people use today for fence posts for good reason. And anyways, we've been doing excavations on it, and we're working with a group of fire investigators out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that investigate modern fires and how they start. And so for about a month, we were sending photographs and notes and all sorts of things to them. And they were working collectively as a group to try to identify where in the house the fire started. Was it a prairie fire? Was it, how everything burned, what the structure was shaped like. And then we had the lead investigator came out this fall and came out and investigated all the burned timbers and wrote up a report. So it's kind of I don't know how many archaeologists have worked with a modern fire investigator.
I will bet not many.
So it was cool for us, but it was, they were all really excited. It was like the original cold case, 650-year-old, how'd this house burn down?
Yeah, that's a cold case. So it was part of the house's pit, so it fell below the ground?
And it got all filled in.
Wow. So do you have any definitive, any answer about what happened? Or?
He was convinced that it didn't start from the outside, looking at the burning on some of the posts, that it was a fire that started inside the house. As intense as the fire burned, they believe they probably brought in kindling and other brush inside the house to set on fire to help it burn more completely.
Oh, wow.
And based off the evidence they have right now, they think that it probably started in the southeastern corner of the house.
On purpose.
Like somebody walked in the front door and threw in a burning timber or something into the southeast corner.
Huh.
So that's kind of fun, and we have our
That's kind of fun.
we have our Indian garden project that's on its 7th year.
Gonna ask you
And
about that.
so we're getting ready to plant our garden probably the week after next.
Yeah, that's probably about right. Still using the heritage seeds, the traditional.
So
Good
we
deal.
partnered with different people. We partnered with a nature preserve outside of Amarillo called Wildcat Bluff.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to start a native garden this year. They do a lot of community outreach with Amarillo schools, and so we went down there on Thursday and provided a garden outline for how they could lay out their garden, and then we provided all the seed with them.
Oh, wow.
And
Well, that's neat.
we partnered with the state of New Mexico and their school system that
Really?
they're
To do the same thing?
they're introducing native gardening into the public school system. And so they have the state broken down into 5 regions, and they're going to start with their Albuquerque region and basically grow out a garden to where they can collect enough seed to
Perpetuate.
for the rest of the state. So
That's amazing.
that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. You guys are awesome. That's really neat.
And I just got back from a big international conference in Vancouver, Canada.
How'd that go?
It was good. It was over 4,000 archaeologists from around the world. And
That is a lot of diggers.
so I received the Presidential Award
That is
for
cool.
the Society for American Archaeology for work that we've been doing.
Can't believe you didn't bring it.
It's a big, huge plaque. I was gonna drill some holes in it, wear it like a name tag, but
Like Flava Flav.
boy, yeah.
Oh, that's really good.
So we've just been busy, lots of things going on, and I was really glad this was the first year that Harold Corson, my boss, got to come to the show. He hasn't been in 3 years, and so it was cool to see how surprised at how big it had gotten to him. And
Oh, yeah.
of course, he's great going around meeting all the guys and introducing them and
Yeah,
making everybody
it's been
feel welcome.
several years, hasn't it, since he's been here?
Yeah, he's had some family
Yeah.
things to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Hearts and prayers are out for him. Well, that's good. I haven't actually seen him. Was he here earlier?
He was here earlier for about 2 hours, and he's going to come back and I think eat with all the guys.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anything coming up for the summer, except for the garden?
Just working on documenting collections and continuing analysis and write-up of projects that we've been working on that are long overdue, and so.
Well, it was great to see you again, and congratulations on another great turnout.
Well, thanks to all of our volunteers, everybody at the museum, Stacy Brown, the director, people like Dempsey Mullaney who helped not only on today but setting up all the tables. And
Dempsey's been in and out of here. He was driving the Rangers, the players was inside and out this morning, bringing in collections. I saw him.
And James Coverdale and my
James.
wife Lisa Brasowski that works with me, all the hard work that they put in to make the show a success.
I gotta
I'm
tell
just
you, Lisa caught me earlier, and she said, "Scott, he's just like a little kid in a candy store today, man. He just loves it." I know. It makes me so happy to see Scott so happy because he's like smiling, running around. That was fun.
Yeah, and thanks to you guys always to come out and film the show and produce a documentary for us, because it's, this year there's 2 guys that aren't here any longer, and they're both guys that you guys have interviewed.
Oh, yeah?
And in a lot of cases, the interview that you guys have done is the only interview that their families have of their grandfather or of their husband or whatever, and so you guys are, doing an important part in documenting these people's lives and what they've done and how they've contributed to archaeology.
Well, we're sure happy to do it. It's one of our most favorite things we do all year. It's just always good to get over here and get around everybody, meet a bunch of friendly people, talk to them, and find out what makes them tick. And
They're like the greatest guys.
oh yeah,
I mean,
they
we
really
love
are.
them.
They really are, and always good to come and see you. We're gonna head out though.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.